Hello everyone. This is the 31st part of the story, Marvel Unlimited Skills, I Can Download. Chapter 195, Arrival. This was what Doctor Strange was most concerned about. He only wanted to ensure the safety of Earth. Therefore, Doctor Strange must guarantee that all threats could be removed. After hearing what Doctor Strange was saying, Thor wore a positive expression on his face. As long as we find our father, I will take them away without threatening the safety of the Earth. Thor knew what Doctor Strange was worried about. He recalled that Doctor Stranger said he was a guardian of the real world, so he knew the purpose of Doctor Strange and he promised directly. In fact, if he could not guarantee that Loki would not cause trouble, he would not bring him to the Earth. After all, the All-Father was on the Earth. No matter what, it was impossible for Loki to make any trouble. It was about to be Ragnarok. Although Thor had wiped out the prophecy, he was still very worried. Only when his father was in Asgard, there would not be any problems. After all, even Thor was admirable for Odin's strength. Well, I promised you to help you find Odin, the All-Father, but what I want to tell you is that your father is willing to be exiled for a period of time. His determination about not being disturbed by others is strong, so I hope you understand. This was what Odin said when he left, and was also Odin's explanation to Doctor Strange. Although Thor was an Odin's child, he could not guarantee whether Odin would be willing to see him. You just need to help us find him. At the moment, Thor said. He did not want to waste time anymore, because it was important for him. Odin was not in Asgard for one day, then the crisis in the Nine Realms would become more and more serious. And he knew that the power of the All-Father was from Asgard, so he was worried that Odin would die soon if he stayed on Earth for a long time. After all, Asgard's life was not unlimited. The infinite was just for humans. At this moment, Doctor Strange nodded slightly after hearing Thor's answer. As long as he could ensure that, there would be no problem. Your father is now in Norway. I'll help you find him. After saying that, Doctor Strange directly made his move. He went over a number of books to find out about the location of Odin and let them go directly. At this time, Thor was tricked by the various means of Doctor Strange. This was the first time that Thor was so embarrassed as the god of thunder. It was just that he could not react. Can you stop? Thor was a little helpless. This power was indeed hard to prevent. But Doctor Strange did threat him, so he did not attack him. At this moment, Doctor Strange completely located the position of Odin and drew a golden channel directly in front of Thor. Your father is here. You can go. Then Thor saw another side of the scene, although he did not see his father, but he could feel the breath of Odin. A smile appeared on his face and he said directly, "Thank you, I will finish what I promised you." Right, my hammer. Thor then directly extended his hand to summon the Mjolnir. Bang, bang, bang. After feeling Thor's summon, the Mjolnir that had changed into an umbrella broke through everything and went back to Thor's hands. Nobody knew how many things had been smashed. This made the god of thunder feel a little awkward and could only keep a smile. Yes, and my brother. At the moment, Thor once again said. Doctor Strange reacted and nodded. Then he once again drew a circle. A black figure fell from it and landed directly on the ground. It was the god of magic, Loki. Damn it! I had a free-falling body for 30 minutes. At this moment, Loki was very angry. This was the first time that he had been tricked by someone else. He stood up directly and looked at Doctor Strange in front of him with murderous intent. There was no need to think about it. He knew that the culprit of all this was from the person in front of him. What do you think you are, a second-class necromancer from the Earth? I want you to see what is powerful and what is true God. At the moment, Loki was very angry. Then he turned out 2 daggers and rushed to Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange shook his head slightly and then took control of that golden circle, which directly shrouded Thor and Loki. At the next moment, Odin's 2 sons disappeared directly in the holy place of New York Holy. Doctor Strange did not want to fight with Loki because there was no meaning. He was called the first witch in the 9 realms, and his witchcraft came from Odin's wife. It could be said to be very powerful. And Doctor Strange was now the Sorcerer Supreme on Earth, who was known as the most powerful master. The system between the two sides was very similar, therefore, it was very hard to decide whether to win or lose. Because the focus of both sides was different. But if the two sides really fought with each other, the winner would definitely be Doctor Strange. After all, he was the guardian of the real world who accepted the real supreme magic. While Doctor Strange sent them away, he shook his head slightly. Just when he wanted to go back, he suddenly realized that Bruce stood behind him. At this moment, Bruce's eyes were calm and he looked at the place where Thor and Loki disappeared. "What's the matter with you?" Doctor Strange said this, and he was still a little proud. After all, he had just done something very well just now. Facing the two princes of Asgard, he could be flattered and indifferent. This was already a temperament of the Sorcerer Supreme. It could be said that Doctor Strange learned it very fast. After you return to Camartage, summon all powerful masters to protect every holy place. And you'd better not take part in the next things. When Bruce said that, Doctor Strange was shocked. He didn't know what Bruce said and why he said these. At this moment, Doctor Strange looked at the outside world, and he did not feel any danger. Could it be that Odin is going to break out? This was the only thing that Doctor Strange could think of. Let Bruce pay so much attention to it. It must be this. It was just that Bruce shook his head slightly. Although it was not Odin, it was a person who was not much weaker than Odin. "Do it as I say. You'll know. And I will deal with the next things," Bruce said. At the moment, Bruce simply stood there, staring at nothingness and deep in thought. But he seemed to be able to see everything. He was like the king who controlled everything. He knew that the goddess of death, Hela, was coming. Chapter 196, Goddess of Death. At this moment, Bruce looked at all of this standing in the back and his expression was very calm. He just looked at it and waited. As for Doctor Strange, after he heard Bruce's words, he immediately began to call his men. Just now, Bruce's words were so frightening that he could not believe it. Let him summon all powerful masters to protect the holy place. Doctor Strange gave this more attention. After all, he was the present Sorcerer Supreme, so if he failed at the very beginning, then maybe he could not convince others. On the other side, Thor and Loki had found Odin. It was the last time of Odin, although Bruce was looking at him, but he did not show up. Because this time belonged to Odin and his children, which was his final time of his life. After this, Thor and Loki would be united together for a moment, and abandon their hatred in the past. Because the king of Asgard had gone, which was very difficult for them to face the truth. After all, they had safely lived for over 1,000 years in Odin's protection. If it weren't Odin, they would not be so smooth before. Especially Loki, he had made a lot of trouble in the 9 realms. If it were not Odin, he would not be so relaxed before. Odin was the lord of the 9 realms and was a true war god. And everyone was scared of his power. If Thor would succeed this position, maybe he could not become the second Odin. Because Odin was the only one, and a real king. Therefore, Hela did not want Thor to become the king of Asgard. In fact, Odin indeed maintained the peace of the 9 realms. This was really a great thing. But today, this legendary powerful existence, the real king, the god of war, would disappear in the world. It was really a surprise. But as he ever said, there were no differences between the Asgard and the human. They were just more powerful than humans. And the Asgard were not God, so they would also die and disappear in the end. Although the way to die was not the same, it was indeed dead. The dissipation of the soul was the real omen of death. No matter it was Thor or someone else, even Bruce could feel that Odin was disappearing slowly. This was the feeling of death. And the present goddess of death was waiting for Odin's death. Because only Odin died could she really appear. Standing in the holy place of New York, Bruce narrowed his eyes and saw everything. On the other side, Odin had told their children everything, and his body turned into a point of starlight now and then dissipated. At the moment, in front of them, it was a beautiful sea, looking very beautiful. The king of gods just thoroughly disappeared like this. And Thor and Loki were still recalling what Odin said before. They had a sister called the Death Goddess, and because her strength was too strong, their father sealed her. At the moment, Loki thought she was a danger and maybe she would threaten them. But the present Thor could not accept his father's death. He looked at Loki in front of him and his face appeared angry. "Loki, look what you've done." Thor was really angry, because his father died like that. He thought it was because Loki exiled his father on the earth, which was far away from Asgard, then caused his father's power to become more and more weak. If it wasn't for this, Odin could actually live a long time. But it was just because of the move of Loki, Odin could not continue to live on. "I don't know, it will be like this." At the moment, there was a trace of guilt on his face. Although he had tried to kill Thor before, and he was an adopted son of Odin, even so, his feelings for Asgard was true. Especially his mother. And his father, though not a real father, he knew that Odin really loved him like his real father. Therefore, Odin's death also had a considerable impact on him. But he did not know what to do, because he thought this was indeed his fault. He eventually caused his father's death. But when Thor wanted to say something else, a huge aura emerged in his perception. Then Thor and Loki looked at each other with a solemn expression. A woman who looked like a ghost walked out of the black, covering an aura of death, looking at Thor and Loki. "Odin has died? It's a pity that I don't see it." At the moment, the woman said this slowly and her eyes were filled with a terrifying murderous intent. Although she was standing in the same place all the time, she exuded a terrifying power. After Thor and Loki saw her, they immediately got ready and the Mjolnir appeared. They also looked back at the Hela in front of them. "You're the sister that father said. I think we can have a talk." At the moment, Loki had felt the power of Hela, and he was a very cautious man, because he knew that this matter might not seem so simple. Perhaps even though he and Thor were united, they still could not defeat the woman in front of them. Thor, on the other hand, just glanced at Loki and did not say anything. "You are my brother, Loki, right? You look like him. As for you, Thor, you don't look like him." At the moment, Hela smiled when she looked at the two brothers in front of her. She looked very relaxed. Because without the suppression of Odin, no one could defeat her now. As long as she was released, her power would become stronger and stronger. By then, she would become the master of Asgard and become the real queen. She would take back all the things that Odin took away from her. And this was her ultimate goal. "I don't care who you are. Since father says you will threaten Asgard, then I can't let you live." Thor did not say so much and directly threw Mjolnir into Hela. This was the Mjolnir, which was created by a dead star, which could be said to be invincible. Therefore, no one could resist it. The Mjolnir even could compare with Gungnir. It could be said that it was Thor's most powerful source of power. And no matter what kind of opponent he faced, Thor could rely on his Mjolnir to completely defeat them. Therefore, this time, there was also no exception in Thor's view. But the moment the Mjolnir was thrown out, a powerful force was rushing forward. Then when Mjolnir had just come into contact with Hela, it was directly caught by one hand. Chapter 197, Fragmentation. Then Thor and Loki looked at Hela nearby and were very shocked. Thor and Loki all knew the strength of Mjolnir. It was created by Odin, and its strength was extremely strong, which was called the most powerful artifact in the 9 realms. But now Mjolnir was held tightly by Hela and could not move at all. At this moment, Thor felt very shocked because he felt that his contact with Mjolnir was gradually weakening. "It's impossible." His heart was shocked and he just looked at Hela in front of him. Her power had been beyond his imagination. "Why, my dear brother, are you afraid?" At the moment, Hela looked at Thor in front of her and a murderous intent appeared on her face. She just held Mjolnir in her hand, then a powerful force gathered in her hands, and the entire sky became gray. There were countless constantly turbulent thunderbolts in the sky and the powerful aura shook heavily. Then Mjolnir in her hand started to deform. Boom! The voice of thunder continued to emerge, the powerful aura shook and the sky was full of lightning. Thor and Loki looked at the scene in front of them and they were totally shocked by this. Bang! At the next moment, a violent thunder appeared, and then Mjolnir broke into several pieces of scrap iron. No! Thor's face changed greatly. He looked at his Mjolnir that had fought with him side by side for many years, which was crushed. He could not bear it at all. And when Loki saw the power of Hela, his face also changed greatly and he felt the danger of life. But Thor was more shocked. He just looked at the broken Mjolnir and did not know what to do. This was the source of his ability. The reason why he had always been able to maintain his victory in the battle was because of Mjolnir in front of him. But now his Mjolnir had been broken. It was equivalent to destroying his ability to master the lightning. It's impossible. It's impossible. At the moment, Thor murmured, and he could not believe that his Mjolnir was crushed. Even he himself did not react. Then his Mjolnir was just broken in front of him. He still could not believe it. Without Mjolnir, was he still that Thor? He did not know. And after Hela did these, her eyes were full of contempt. Is this Thor? At this moment, Hela's face showed contempt. She was Odin's eldest daughter, and she was the true queen of Asgard. And she did not give attention to her younger brothers at all. When Thor heard Hela's words, he was indeed very confused. Was he really a god of thunder? Without Mjolnir, he was equivalent to a common person. Like the first time he was exiled to Earth by Odin, he had always relied on Mjolnir. At the moment, Loki also did not know what he should do. Hela looked around. After she came out, her ability was constantly recovering. At this moment, her power was unprecedentedly strong. She would become more and more powerful since she broke the seal. But if she wanted to restore the power of the full period, then she must go back to Asgard. But Hela had a different idea now. Then she looked around and looked indifferent. Is this the Earth that he always wants to protect? Since I'll rule 9 realms in the future, then this place belongs to my region. But I don't like it here. More importantly, he likes to protect the Earth, so it will definitely be very interesting to destroy it. Hela's idea was just to destroy the Earth first. Because she knew better than anyone that this place was what Odin wanted to protect, she would destroy all of them. Only by doing so could she feel excited. I will never allow you to do that. Thor was shocked when he heard Hela's words. Because this was not just the Earth that was valued by Odin, he did too. Therefore, he never allowed the Earth to be destroyed. Do you think you can stop me now? At the moment, Hela looked at Thor in front of her. She immediately attacked and made a strong force. Without Mjolnir, Thor was slow to react. He could not be a match for Hela. After attacking Thor, Hela officially placed her eyes on Earth. At this moment, Bruce, who was in the holy place of New York, also felt all of it for the first time. He opened his eyes directly and his eyes appeared a trace of light. As expected, the current plot is different from Thor, Ragnarok. Hela actually wants to destroy the Earth and then return to Asgard. At the moment, Bruce muttered to himself and he knew that the system would not issue meaningless tasks. From now on, all the plots began to change. Perhaps in the plot of Avengers Alliance 3, the plot would be completely out of his control. But he had nothing to fear, because now he had the ability to face everything. Then without any hesitation, Bruce directly took out the sling ring in his hand and opened a passageway directly. The present Hela had slowly ascended the air and was ready to make a destructive attack here. Although it was troublesome for her to do this, it was just a little warm-up before she ascended to the throne of Asgard. But when she was ready to attack, Bruce walked out of the golden circle. He appeared in this magnificent plane like this and looked very calm. He stood under Hela. At this moment, both Thor and Loki saw Bruce's appearance. Then Thor was surprised, but he had a hint of excitement in his eyes, because Thor thought that Avengers would come soon. And Loki's face was pale. He slowly retreated with fear and said, I have to leave this planet quickly. Because in the time of New York, the fear given by Bruce had not completely subsided until now. More importantly, he could clearly feel that Bruce was stronger than before. Earthling, are you here to stop me? At the moment, Hela looked at Bruce in the sky, with contempt in her eyes. In her eyes, Earth was the symbol of weakness and greed. Therefore, the Earthling in front of her was no exception. But after hearing Hela's words, Bruce's eyes did not change at all. He just looked at her calmly. "I'll give you two choices now, leave, or die." Chapter 198 Battle. When Bruce spoke this sentence, all the people present were shocked and felt incredible. At the moment, Loki looked at Bruce and just felt that he was a lunatic. As for Thor, his face changed greatly and he felt Bruce's words were really too domineering, even if he was surprised. But he had just fought with Hela and was completely crushed. Especially now, he had just lost Mjolnir and he had almost no force to confront Hela in front of him. He could clearly feel the power of Hela, which was an incomparable strength. And it was not that he was able to deal with it now. "Bruce, you must be careful. She is really strong." Although it was hard for him to recognize the power of someone else, it was a sincere statement from Thor. Because Hela, Odin's eldest daughter, really had to admit that she was really strong. Because she had crushed Mjolnir, and was it possible for ordinary people to do that? Maybe only his father Odin could do this. At the moment, Thor only wanted Avengers to come and then fight with Hela together. But now it seemed that only Bruce had appeared. When Hela heard Bruce's words, she was angry at first, and then her eyes were full of killing intent and death. Then she looked at Bruce in front of her and a cold smile appeared on her face. "You said that if you don't leave, you'll die. Do you know who I am?" At this moment, Hela did not immediately move, because she wanted to see why this weak human was so stupid that he did not scare of her. If she could not get a satisfactory answer, she would kill him directly. Or, let him feel worse than death. The eldest daughter of Odin, the goddess of death, Hela. Am I right? At the moment, Bruce's face was very calm and he was not affected by the goddess of death. He just looked at Hela in front of him as if he was facing an ordinary person. "Since you know that I'm the goddess of death, you should understand that I'm strong." Then Hela's body slowly fell down, and she looked at Bruce in front of him, until finally, floating in front of Bruce. An aura of death continued to shoot out and a powerful force emerged. Hela could shoot out constantly sharp weapons that could even easily defeat the body of God, so it would be very easy to deal with a weak human. At the moment, Bruce just looked at the goddess of death in front of him. It could be said that Hela's figure and momentum were quite good and could be said to be very powerful. But in Bruce's eyes, she was just an old demon who had been sealed for thousands of years. Bruce really did not have a slightest interest in her. "I'll say it one more time, run away or die." Just as Bruce's words came out, Hela attacked him instantly. Because she could only be threatened by someone else for one time. Loki and Thor also saw the scene, and Hela's power was quite powerful. But at the moment when Hela attacked, Bruce's god's telekinesis was launched, which was like a huge mountain, directly hitting the body of Hela. Bang! Hela did not have any defense, there was nothing in front of her, but she was thrown away directly under the influence of the powerful force. "You're very interesting." At the moment, Hela smiled slightly, then she directly appeared in front of Bruce and stabbed him with one knife. But Bruce lifted his hand quickly to block her movement. The next moment, the battle began. Bruce's body had gone beyond the Aesir god, which was a united power of Thor and even Odin. More importantly, he had other powerful abilities, so it was difficult to tell who was stronger in the battle. Especially the present Bruce now even had Odin's fighting experience for thousands of years. Therefore, Hela was worse in terms of fighting experience. Both Thor and Loki saw this scene, and they were very shocked. Because they did not expect that Bruce in front of them could be so powerful. But even so, could he really defeat Hela? They thought the answer was no. Because Hela was really too strong and her body's strength was even more terrifying than Thor. More importantly, this was a power that she did not enter Asgard yet. Therefore, if Hela was fully able to control the power of the peak period, it would definitely have reached the god level. It was just that Bruce did not candidly admit defeat. His various abilities were extremely excellent, especially his strength, which could crush a building at once. Even a body like Hela could not be able to withstand it completely. At the next moment, Bruce's eyes lit up. His left eye was like a dark abyss, and his right eye was like a sun. One side was the source of God's power, while the other side was the source of darkness. At this moment, Bruce was crazily absorbing the power of God's power and darkness. The strong aura shook and formed a violent force on his body. Boom! It was also at the same time that there were endless clouds in the sky. The powerful thunderbolts swept through the sky, which was very powerful. And it was like a huge lightning was sweeping across the sky. Then the God power and the power of darkness on Bruce's body reached a balance point. Boom! The terrifying aura burst out, and the thunderbolts of hundreds of meters fell down constantly. Then, they united with Bruce's God power and the power of darkness. Boom! The whole earth was shaking. The violent thunder shook and swept, terrifyingly and powerfully. Even Hela also could feel this strong force. Then her face changed, and she felt incredible. She thought this was not a power that the Earthman could control. Boom! At the next moment, the power burst out, like a giant dragon, directly to Hela. Bang! The earth was all split, and the terrible power swept across the earth. At the moment, Thor's and Loki's face all turned pale, and they could not believe everything that had happened. Hela's body was strong, but it could not completely resist when facing such a powerful force. Bruce's attack had reached the god level. Boom! Hela pulled back and fell heavily in the depths of dozens of meters. There was even a trace of blood on her mouth. Odin's eldest daughter, the legendary goddess of death, was injured by a human. I have said, leave, or die. At this moment, Bruce was floating in the air, like a god, looking down at everything. Chapter 199, God. At the moment, all of them were shocked and looked at the scene with an incredible look. Especially Thor and Loki, their eyes were straight, and their faces were white now. They looked at the powerful Hela, who was strong, originally being directly hurt by Bruce. That strong power made them fear. Previously, Bruce drew the power from darkness and the real world, as well as the power of the thunder, and then he integrated them together. These forces were so powerful that even Hela's body could not withstand it. It was not a normal human who would be able to do so. He balanced the power of the real world and the power of the dark dimension, and coupled with the furious power of thunder. Therefore, it was impossible for others to do that because any one of the three forces was very violent and powerful. The destructive power brought by these forces was very terrifying, and it was impossible for others to control it. More importantly, once he could not balance these forces, it would cause devastating strikes to him. Therefore, if you want to have strong power, you must have a strong body and strong spirit. Otherwise, once you could not control this power, and the injury caused was devastating. That was to say, a powerful force needed the strength to match. And Bruce did a good job. There was almost nothing being able to affect him. He could control well over these three forces completely. This was why he could threaten Hela. Although she claimed that she was the goddess of death, she was the daughter of Odin, not a real god. According to Odin's words, they were also human beings, but they were just more powerful than ordinary humans. So they would also die and get hurt. And the attack given by Bruce had injured Hela heavily. Of course, this was also because Hela was on Earth and far away from Asgard. Otherwise, Bruce would not be so relaxed if he wanted to defeat Hela. At this moment, Hela slowly stood up. She looked at Bruce in front of her with a hint of seriousness in her eyes. The strength was too strong, and she was hardly able to bear it. And her indestructible body was actually injured. Although she was now fearful of Bruce, she hated Bruce most. A small Earthman actually took action against the goddess of death. You're good, but it's just the beginning. Hela again stood up again. There were rays of light coming from her body. Then her injured body instantly recovered. Boom! At the next moment, the powerful force erupted again from her body. It was a really powerful force, which was terrifying and swept through the sky, as if it was a storm. Boom! On Hela's body, streaks of sharp thorns formed by her were like a sword and rushed out constantly. Just in a flash, all the spikes gathered together like locusts. Then the whole earth was shaking and cracking. At the moment, Hela was really angry. She did not allow anyone to step on her. As for Bruce, he slowly walked towards the front, with a strand of energy exploding on his body. His body had a strand of lava-like flame. At this moment, he was like a flame giant, and he was covered with tens of thousands of degrees of high temperature. Boom! Once again, the two sides fought again, and the attack of Hela was too perfect. She fought with Odin in the past and established a true Asgard. From that point, she was powerful. At least the other Asgards were unable to compete. Even Thor, he just battled after Asgard was established. More importantly, those battles were just Odin's tests. But Hela was different. She had gone through a real war. Therefore, her battle abilities were quite strong. So when the two sides fought again, they were all strong and powerful, and the powerful abilities were constantly pouring out. The whole earth was cracking and the light was shining. At that moment, Thor and Loki stood side by side, in full shock. This battle was so strong that they could not do it at all. Thor also couldn't do that. Because in many battles, he used his powerful force to suppress other people. As for the true combat abilities, he actually did not master them. Therefore, he was defeated by Hela. Of course, this was also because he had not enough force. And at this time, Bruce had no disadvantage in fighting with Hela. On the contrary, he even had a huge advantage. This made Hela frightened. All of her combat abilities had been refined in various battles. So it could be said that she was a natural warrior. Otherwise, it would not be possible for her to almost destroy all the female gods on her own. This was her power. But her power could not play any role facing Bruce. Because Bruce's combat abilities and the control over the power were so strong that she could not compete with him at all. She thought this was not a force that the Earthman could own. Thinking of this, Hela's face showed a strong sense of killing intent. She gathered all of the sharp thorns together, forming a sharp spike, which seemed to be able to pierce the sun. But Bruce had no fear. He broke out again and gathered all forces together. At this moment, Bruce, like a violent beast, exploded in the sky. Although the thorn was powerful, it was completely unable to withstand Bruce's powerful force. Then with terrible power of terror, the thorn was broken again. In the air, there was a roar of thunder sweeping across the sky. It was like an unprecedented storm. Boom! The terrifying thunderbolts converged again. The black clouds seemed to be extremely heavy, brewing a terrifying thunder with a diameter of hundreds of meters. The thunder was like the thunder of destruction, descending from the air and beyond everything. It was like a dragon. At the moment, Bruce seemed to have controlled everything, standing in the sky. There were hundreds of lightning bolts around his body when he lifted his hand. Both Thor and Loki saw the scene, and they were very shocked. Then Loki patted Thor's shoulder and said, "What god are you?" It was not a mockery, but Loki was too shocked. Even Thor could not make such a thunderbolt. This marks the end of part 31 of the story Marvel Unlimited Skills, I Can Download. Thank you for listening. Please like the video and hit the subscribe button to listen more. Hit the bell icon to get notified of all the new content uploaded to the channel ASAP.